Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the CCIR Student Spotlight, where we interview our past students to learn about their research and their experiences in our programs. My name is Benny, and I'm the director of the CCIR Youth Outreach Program. And I am incredibly excited to welcome on the episode today with Gauri. Gauri is a current sophomore at La Montessori School who participated in the CCIR's Future Scholar program last summer. In her research, she focused on the topic of extremism and combating modern extremism. Under the mentorship of Dr. Lydia from the University of Cambridge, she ultimately produced a research paper titled The Indo-Pak Partition of 1947, Tracing Memories and Impact in Small Towns, which I'm incredibly excited to learn about today. So without further ado, Gauri, please welcome to the interview. So to the first part of this interview, would you slightly introduce yourself to our audiences?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Gauri. I come from this town in northern India called Kullu. I'm currently a high school sophomore, and will be starting my junior year this summer. As for my interests, I particularly like the humanities and the social sciences. Definitely not everything within them, but restricted to like political science and international relations and sociology. I got to know about CCIR on Google and I applied and I did the course. And then he was one of my course mates, and we talked a lot about extremism and sociology and the sociology behind it and what happened in the Middle East. Also touched on belonging and how that affects all these things. So, yeah.
I
I
did
think
not
you
notice that I was muted. So you and I took the same course of Dr. Lydia's Combating Extremism. To you, what was so inspiring about this course before you on board with this course?
Yeah, so coming from a place where our education is basically focused on a lot of revision and rote memorization, and we didn't get a chance to really like think critically about things. And even the professors or the teachers, they do their job, but like you don't see that sort of same like passion and will to do that. So for this course, I was definitely like surprised to see people, especially our mentor, Dr. Wilson, like be really excited to teach us and get to talk to us. We also, I mean, like thought critically about so many things. So I think that was definitely a change for me, and it definitely was inspiring to be in a place where one person was from the UK, we had a course mate from Turkey, and a TA was from Portugal, and you were from Korea, and I'm from India. So that was really exciting to be in such a diverse group and um, really think about things that matter with people from different regions who have like different perspectives. So yeah.
And it was also very rare topic to learn, right? Combating modern extremism is such a rare course that we want to take if you're going to take a political science or international course, international relations courses, because it is hard to have a lot of information in that area. So I think that's why it made the course very mysterious, but at the same time interesting really at the same time. Yeah. So how did you come to take the interest in studying extremism?
So I have been in a lot into like politics since I think maybe seventh or eighth grade when I started participating in model UNs and stuff. So here in India, and I think every country in the world, you got so many, I think, polarized opinions about a particular thing, and people themselves become a bit extremist in their opinions when they talk about extremism somehow, like if you're getting it. So I was basically interested in this concept, and I have been reading about Middle East and how these terrorist organizations came up and why they came up and how we can counter them. So for me, I think I wanted to basically like sensitize myself about it and also gain experience regarding how it works out there in the global world and in the field. Like our mentor also like interviewed people. So I wanted to learn about people's perspectives, specifically on this topic because it has changed the way we see things, both in like the world and also in academia. So that was what was interesting to me.
So after taking Dr. Lydia's course, and you eventually produced an amazing research paper, and also a TA session with with Mr. Antonio. Hopefully he's doctor soon. He's a PhD student, so yeah. So what have you learned after this kind of a course? Of course, did anything change with your understanding of political knowledge, or what happened after the course?
Yeah, so I think the first thing being I did somewhat like knew a lot about things and how they worked, but like I remember in our very first TA session we were talking about uh, these terms, I think international and global, and we got them all confused, and then Antonio explained them to us, and I think it was just interesting to see how there are these small terms and small definitions and languages and the language we use to refer to them. And I got to learn more about that specifically. And obviously, because we had a mentor who had talked to these people and went out there in the field investigating the subject, it was definitely interesting to learn about this deeply because otherwise you can read about things which are like second-hand accounts or third-hand accounts, but to hear from a person who actually went there and did it themselves, it definitely also like I think maybe um, made us have a better understanding of how the psychology behind joining these terrorist organizations work and how the policy, for example, like we read about the CV methods used in Europe and US, and then how they're made um, and what they focus on. So like we got to know like the behind the door everything on the both sides of the topic. So that was pretty new to me because like you can read obviously and you can look at videos or search things online, but listening from people who have actually done it themselves is definitely different. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember so many personal stories that Dr. Lydia shared with her workplace and what she found during her research. And like when the time that she kind of talked with some person who directly was and knowing the ISIS, it was pretty interesting to see that kind of scope that closely, right? So speaking of Dr. Lydia, do you have any lecture that you found very inspiring throughout the course?
Yes, so I think this must have been the second or the third lecture where we talked a lot about belonging. And so basically started with this quote, if I can remember correctly, the land of guns and roses. And so that was the perception from those terrorists who joined these organizations that it was a bit of both. And so we discovered through that lecture how people, even if it's like monetary, um, if even if it's like monetary benefits that they're getting, how they've sort of uh, being pulled apart, which is like a pull factor from their communities because they feel that somewhere they've been inflicted upon, or and they you know go and join these terrorist organizations also to seek hope and find community. And I think it was very interesting to see how people how we how desperation and human suffering can really make you act, um, and how like we can I mean, we can definitely like perceive things a lot differently than they actually are. And so I think talking about belonging and how it was very essential to um, everything surrounding extremism and even like the CVE policies, that was very interesting to me. And so I think um, that particular lecture I definitely like remember very clearly. We also talked about the push factors, the pull factors. As I was saying earlier, and how everybody's got a different experience in that same in the same story in the same particular event. So that was interesting, and I think because I liked that we talked about belonging, and I like this idea of looking at more of the immaterial emotional aspects of such events. So, and that's why I also focused my paper on a lot on belonging and how different people, how different perspectives and experiences people have with events.
Yeah, like I remember specifically when like we all went around and share what kind of view of extremism that we had. And I remember I had a lot of North Korea cases. And Dr. Lee also had something related to United Kingdom and the security forces. You had something related to India. And Yit, he had a lot of Turkey, how being middle of the conflict between the United States and Russia. It was very enjoyable to hear those different perspectives of extremism, and when we all gave presentations too, right? If you remember or not, we all went around and gave presentations about what we learned and what we valued the most important in the field of extremism. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting and memorable memories to take away. Moving slightly away from the interview and like these lecture academic basis, just a fun question and inspirational too. Do you have any favorite figure that you look up to, like role model, like, or like, yeah?
Yeah, sure. So I think I got to know about this person who's worked, and this is also related to extremism in the Middle East, who worked in the FBI during the crisis of 9/11, and that person is Ali Soufan. He's originally from Lebanon, but he worked in the FBI as an agent during that time, and how it's his story that's been told in that documentary. And towards the end, I think he was one of the main people behind finding the link to Bin Laden's some important, I mean, like a sidekick who helped him do what he did. And so there's this clip in the ending that of Ali Soufan explaining to that person who was a terrorist that and that person says, I'm doing it for jihad, but then Ali Soufan counters him and says that Islam says that jihad is a struggle, as it's been mentioned in the Quran, and I think we discussed this. It's one of the Salafi ideas or Wahhabi ideas. I can't remember clearly, but yeah, it's been mentioned as a struggle. And so, like, sort of the message of the documentary was how people misrepresent their own culture and religion sometimes, and how that ends up uh, other people misrepresenting it, and then the cycle continues. So he was definitely, I think, a person that sort of maybe inspired me a bit, because what he did was he obviously was a person who was on ground working with the people there, because he knew the language and he knew the culture. And I think that could definitely like act as a, I guess, a model for, I mean, doing groundwork in war-torn areas. Um, so that was definitely inspiring. And we also, I think, talked about Rwanda once in one of our TA sessions, and how, an agent from Rwanda itself was able to do the things that somebody else couldn't. So I think the same thing is that we could definitely, again, if we want to really effectively do things, look at more of the cultural sort of attachment that people have with each other, and how that's a bigger understanding than what a person than an outsider would have. So yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's like really deeply focused on the area of extremism. That's actually really good, because I can see how much extremism that took part of in you, inside you, and like how you're considering those when you were kind of speaking about your role model. Very real research. Wow. So how has what you have learned, how did that help you in dealing practically contemporary issues?
I think in real life, I do come across a lot of people who are very extremist in their ideologies. And so, like, for example, like maybe you're liberal as I am. So, like, we can talk about a thing and oppose it and maybe even like make fun of it. But when you're like dealing with people who have got extreme ideologies, the tactic that I use now is to go back to those original scriptures, um, which have, I mean, like, if obviously because I encounter people with like communal extremism, and so like talk to them and I'd tell them, this, look at this book and look at this, look at the Gita, for example, which is the holy book of the Hindus, and look what's been written here. Look what's been written about diversity and brotherhood and fraternity. So I think going back to what's been written, even though it might have been oppressive to us, it might sound oppressive or regionalized to us in a lot of these old religious tales and things. So you can definitely, I think, use what they believe in to actually, I guess, neutralize how extreme they think and how extreme they act sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So with those inside your mind, like, do you like continuously read research papers, or like do you have any personal experiences with like kind of researching these issues that's happening around you, or like in your particular area of interest?
Yeah, so when I also researched for the research paper, I did it in a form of an oral history project. So I went to people who had experienced and looked at the partition through their eyes and asked them, what their experience was, what they felt was, what happened was wrong, or
Gary, you're not audible. Take your time.
Take your time. Yeah.
Oh,
Can you
now.
hear me now?
Yeah, you can
Okay,
continue.
yeah. Sorry, that was a glitch. So basically, I was saying was that I went to all these people, and because India is a diverse country, we have the Hindus and the Muslims, then we have Dalits, and obviously it was important for me to include everybody when I was writing that research paper, because everybody who belongs to these different social groups, they had a different experience with the partition, and it was interesting to see how those interactions have shaped me, because I come from a Hindu family, but I do identify as an atheist. I don't think it matters right now, but I went to a few Dalit members of my village, and and they were older, obviously, and I was asking them. So the sort of conversations which I had with them were definitely more enlightening to me, because that was something that was not peculiar to me, and it was to them and to their community and their struggles. So I think that is something that was interesting. I interviewed a few Muslims too, and again, for with them too, I think it was interesting to see how different their perspective was, and it was enlightening for me, because again, that this is not what I heard earlier from my parents or my grandparents. So I think it's important to keep seeking out diverse perspectives. As of now, I am probably going to continue working on this particular topic of research, because I couldn't get as many interviews at that time because of COVID and everything. And I do plan on writing more about the culture of my region, which is not yet that explored in even in like the global academia or other fields as well. So yeah.
Wow, it is very inspiring to know that you're going to continue to research in the field of the same topic, because I recognize that you interviewed your nearby towns, and you were kind of motivated to continuously do so more even after this, because you know that you can collect more information, and you can develop this into another level. Uh, hopefully really that works out for you. Keep me updated, definitely. Uh, so what are some long-term academic goals that you might have? Like, where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years with academics?
I think for me, I definitely, I mean, I'm going to pursue a career in um, economics and political science, or like at the intersection of it, or I mean, sociology. I'm not too sure for now. I think I've got 2 years to decide before I go to college, and hopefully, I think I might, and I don't know if I will end up this way, but hopefully I would be able to do a job where I can, go out to these places and actually like work on field to improve the conditions for people over there. So definitely in towards the developmental side of humanities and social sciences. By then, I hope to get into a good college and get a degree, and be a learned person so that I can use my knowledge to actually go out there and impact people.
I am pretty sure that you will go to a really good place for developing your research and your passion in a very fit school. Before we end this interview, Gary, do you have anything to add on today?
Yes, I remember it now, and I think we missed it through the interview. But one of the things that I obviously also I think we discussed it, but not at that length, was transcendence. And you know how even during the classes, right, all of us were from very diverse region and with very diverse experiences, and yet there were things that we when we looked back upon, they were like the same for us. And if even if it was, the way that our country has been handling things, or CVE, for example. So that was very interesting to me. And other than that, I think um, through the research paper, I also felt that we have, uh, I guess, polarized ourselves too much into like us and them, which is the wrong concept, because I believe that all of us are in one person. I don't know how to explain this, but um, what an individual uh, identifies with, whether that be politically, socially, or their culture. It's not. It doesn't belong to like one specific region bounded by geopolitical boundaries, or one specific community or race or religion, but how you know we have um, a little bit of each other in ourselves and somehow. And I think we need to recognize that in order to be a more peaceful society and world.
No.
Yeah.
Gary, always you give like such insightful, inspiring, and there's so much thoughtful comments in such a diverse perspective, and like different serious issues. Like that's so great, Gary. Thank you. Anything else, Gary?
Yes, I think my experience with CCI was also like very enlightening, because obviously I was with, I mean, a diverse group of people. I don't know, I really love the word diversity, and I love to associate with it. So it was, for me, coming from a very small region where I couldn't really get enough resources to pursue my intellectual passions, or even meet people from outside of this region. It was, I would say, life-changing experience for me totally.
Oh,
And it was very great. It was awesome.
thank you, Gary. Yeah, well, as I'm working here, I've also noticed that there are many people from a lot of regions. There's such a international, diversified community here, and there are so many researchers that just needs the resource to conduct those research. And like people like you, Gary, if you need a small, tiny help, you will be extremely successful, right? And I think you are doing well, very well, exceptionally well in your area of interest. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's it
All
for
right.
now.
All right.
I can't
Thank
recall
you. Thank you
anything.
for joining us today, Gary. It was incredibly interesting to hear about your research. This video will be posted along with the others on our YouTube channel under the Spotlight Scholar series. It was a pleasure talking to you. Bye.